guest needs no introduction, so I'm not going to give him one. It's the legendary Mbongeni Ngema. We all remember Woza Albert and Sarafina, but he's here to talk about his latest project. Black is an autobiography of his life through music and dance. In fact, the performance at Emperor's Palace features 30 musicians, dancers, and a 10-piece band with the maestro himself as the leading artist. He joins us live right now. Sawubona, Keith.
Sawubona.
Uyaphila?
Ngiyaphila mjani?
Ngiyaphila. Very nice to be with you this morning. The last time I spoke to you, you were busy with other things, and you are always this guy. There's always something you are cooking. Right now, this live show, talk to me about just the putting together of a show of this magnitude. 30 musicians, dancers, a 10-piece band, having to galvanize all of these people and pull them together. What does it take?
It's just a labor of love.
Yeah.
Really, it's the concept started in Durban last year with the CEO of the Playhouse, Linda Bukhosini, and she said to me, what would you like to present at the Playhouse for Christmas? And I said, well, maybe how about telling the story of my life through music?
Right.
And she said, wow, brilliant idea. And we put it together and performed it for the first time at the Playhouse last year, December, and people were just so mesmerized, you know. You can imagine it's this huge cast. But, you know, it's just wall-to-wall music. A little bit of talking here and there, no acting, nothing, just song and dance. But it encapsulates, you know, all the hills, the valleys, the rivers, the storms of my life.
And all of these songs, sing-alongs, very catchy, and they have a tendency and a genius of how you've written them to stay in our minds even long after we've watched the performance on stage. What sort of feedback do you get from the audience that you bump into either on the evening or just as you move about around the world?
You know, it was so ironic that as I walked into the building here, I bumped upon Moses Ngwenya.
Yes.
The leading member of the Soul Brothers and one of the originators of the band Soul Brothers. It takes me back 1984. I had just come back from the United States and, you know, was listening to all the great American singers, and my favorite, of course, was Marvin Gaye at the time. And he's actually his piano player, because at where we stayed in Harlem, we hired a piano, and he's the one who taught me how to play piano.
Okay.
Because me, I'm a guitarist from childhood. And I came back to South Africa. I met with Moses Ngwenya at Dube. I said to him, I've got this tune in mind. And we sat together in his garage, little garage at Dube, and that's how we created Stimela Sasezola. So as I was walking in here, I was reminding him, remember how we created this iconic song? 40 years later, it's still a big hit. So what I'm saying is, it's in the hearts and minds of every person in South Africa and beyond South Africa. Whenever there is a party or there's a wedding, it won't end without playing Stimela Sasazon. And people always say, wow, what a song. And I'm saying to myself, 40 years later, do you still enjoy and dance to this music? Hey, yeah.
We absolutely do. And how apt is it, the fact that we had Black Moses in the building this morning, and he's the man playing the keys on this iconic song. When we talk about Sarafina, there's obviously another sentiment of history there. And you've gone and recreated it using young actors, but the message still carries through to even the younger generation who may not have been around when the film was first premiered across the theaters around the world. What sort of feedback are you getting from those young people who are experiencing Sarafina for the first time? Ama 2000, they call them.
Ama 2000. You know, last week I was shooting another movie in KwaZulu-Natal. Again, you know, it's an ETV movie that I was shooting down there. And I come to the reception of the hotel, and this lady looks at me, and she says, wait a minute, I'm just going to my room, I'm coming back right now. She comes back with a letter written by her 12-year-old boy,
Okay.
addressed to President Cyril Ramaphosa, an open letter saying, please recognize Mbongeni Ngema for what he has done for our country, the man who brought to us Sarafina. And I said, a 12-year-old boy?
Wow.
But it didn't end there. She went upstairs and brought the boy himself to meet me, and we took pictures. And I said, if my work still makes an impact to 12-year-old kids, it's something else. It means it was actually sent by God and my ancestors. I was just a conduit to take it to the people.
And what does that say, Baba Mbongeni, about your legacy? You are living it and you are watching all of this in real time. When you sit here on your own and you are, reflecting, what comes to mind?
It shocks me. I mean, you talk about Sarafina. When I wrote Sarafina, I didn't have an international hit in mind.
Right.
I was just writing because I was seeing what was happening in the township. I was living in Soweto at the time, and I was going to funerals every weekend to bury a comrade who would have been killed by the security forces during our times in the apartheid years. And so I was seeing all these things in front of me, and I thought, okay, let me just write something about it. Not thinking that it would become such a huge, iconic project for the world.
Sure.
Which even now, more than 30 years later, people are still talking. Kids, June 16 has become Sarafina Day in South Africa.
Yes.
I get invited to all the schools, and kids they have their own little groups of Sarafina. And I sit and I watch and I say, how did that happen? It was not my plan. It just, that's why I say, God just used me to tell the stories. It's not because I'm a genius or anything.
That's incredible. Listen, you're a genius in my eyes and in my books. Let's talk about, just before I let you go, the current state of affairs in South Africa at the moment. When you wrote Sarafina, it was a volatile time in our history. What do you think of South Africa right now in the context of how you came about to write Sarafina?
Well, I think the current production, Black, touches on that, because I've written a song called Thina Bantu Abamnyama. 30 years later, I feel like we've retrogressed. We've moved 30 years even prior to 1994. It is unfortunate that I see so much poverty in the townships. I drive around coming out of my house, I see men standing and begging in the streets, the same way that they used to stand and queue in Albert Street with their passes in their hands, begging white people for a job. When a car comes by, men would just jump into a car, not even knowing where they're going to, and say, Bas, it pains me to see that the leadership that we have today is not really paying attention to the downtrodden, those who have no bread on their table as we speak right now.
Thank you for that. Please remind us of the dates again and where we can catch it.
Black will be at the Emperor's Palace, just behind O.R. Tambo International Airport, from the 14th of September until the 16th of September.